Hey guys, Scott here. Farmer John brought something to my attention and I thought he was trolling me, and he said that they buffed the Asylum map, which is notoriously one of the strongest survivor maps in the game. It is still, to this day, the biggest map in the entire game. In fact, the 2v8 version of this map is pretty much like the same size just as this map because it's already so big. And he said they added some breakable walls, and I was like, I don't remember that happening. But nope, they just added 90 freaking breakable walls everywhere. Just everywhere breakable wall. Breakable walls everywhere. Everyone gets breakable walls. The whole thing's breakable wall. Just breakable wall. There's 80 bajillion breakable walls. Oh, look, another breakable wall. So, I thought behavior. I thought we were done with this. I've noticed a stark decrease in the amount of breakable walls over time. And I think it's because they accepted that, you know what, we tried a new mechanic. Not so much a good idea. They're essentially just pre-dropped god pallets. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Apparently not. Apparently they just decided to make this building essentially a giant Haddonfield fence. Because the actual distance from, like, on the other side of one of these walls to, like, actually get around all of this, it's like... It's longer than a Haddonfield wall now, because there are just so many of these, and almost all of these are buffs for Survivor. Already on this is probably the strongest, like, central main building in the entire game, and they just made it worse. Like, this one is usually not here because you could at least deal with this loop by kind of mind gaming it here. So essentially, you have even more shit to kick in the middle in terms of actual breakable walls. Now, the only upside I can possibly see to this is I think there's only 2 pallets here at the bottom, which is usually the case, and then there should be one at the top. I believe there used to be, honestly, 2 and 1, and then there's the other one, I think. Actually, no, the more I look at this actually seems to be about the same. Yeah, this is pretty much just the same, except I just added 50 more breakable walls. So... all this means is you, as killer, you essentially just have to pre-kick even more stuff now. The only way you could possibly view this as an upside for killer is if you look at it that there are less entrances to the main building now. So survivors can only be funneled in a certain way. However, once they're in here, they're infinitely more safe than they used to be. So if a survivor makes it here, you just, unless you've kicked a bunch of walls to make this an actual acceptable chase, then you just leave them. You just don't... you basically treat this like the Dead Dog Saloon main building. The problem is, this is in the middle of the map. In the Dead Dog map, it's kind of like, you know, in the corner of the map. So it's in that quarter of it. So you can kind of ignore it, and there's typically just one generator there, and that's it. This is in the center of the entire map, which means you can basically get to it with one speed burst from anywhere. And that is what makes it absolutely painful to deal with. Also, considering this is the biggest map in the game, there's just so much holding forward. It's really, really rough. So they removed a bunch of entrances, which is good if they're not in the building. But again, once they're in the building, this is an absolute nightmare. And you know what? Balance aside, maybe people analyze this and find it's not as bad as I'm initially thinking. Again, these are my first impressions. I need to play in it more to get a better, gauge of the strength of this new building. But the most important thing to take away from all this, whether or not this turns out to be a good change in terms of balance and making it weaker for Survivor, because it needs to be weaker for Survivor because it's already insanely good for Survivor, it's that they're still adding breakable walls. That's the key takeaway here. I thought we were done with breakable walls. I thought it was over. We hadn't seen them in a while, and now they've just vomited like 15 of them into the main building. They need to accept breakable walls are bad design. It's just pre-dropped god pallets. That's all they are. And I get the idea that they wanted to make it so the killer could basically create his own custom loop, but it just effectively never really ends up working like that with like 1 or 2 exceptions. Most of the time, they're just pre-dropped god pallets that you have to kick. And from what I can tell here, that just makes this shit much harder to deal with in an already insanely hard to deal with structure. Again, like this one, this one you have to kick now. Like there's not even a drop up here, so you can go upstairs and drop down or anything. You have to kick this. This is just a required kick now. So, I don't know, man. Regardless of what this turns out being balanced towards, I hate that they keep adding breakable walls. It was a great attempt at trying something, but please fucking stop. Nobody likes them. Just please stop.